you're in a reduced workforce, you're forced to work from home, possibly your buildings are shuttered or diminished in terms of access. And so really you've been more turned upside down. And in some cases you might actually have some extra capacity, but there's different things that you're doing. Like, for example, in schools, you're probably, you don't have halls with kids running around them all day now, but you're still doing your building checks. You're getting into deep cleaning, disinfection, and related type tasks. There's a lot of other things that we can look at to assist you when you're working from home, chipping away at deferred maintenance, work order backlog, if you have access to the buildings and they're quiet at this time. But there's a lot of different areas that you can keep doing, including internal assessment, where you can really look at and analyze. So we're going to go through a couple of examples of how you can use our solutions to assist you in this process. So inspections, building checks, things of that nature. So this is obviously a very common one we're hearing, that people are being redeployed, especially in schools and municipality buildings that are no longer open to the public, or even in many cases to all staff. So you just need to make sure you develop a series of good quality, inspection-oriented tasks through work orders, PMs. Have a good list of those summaries. They're available on your regular browser. You can see it from the desktop, and you can see it from your mobile device. Take the time to put in some good instructions. And these instructions are probably, you may be building these things from scratch because you may have never had a disinfection task that you wanted your team to work on, or maybe you did and you have to modify it to update with appropriate PP&E and other tasks that you might not normally do. But just build those out. Chip away at your maintenance backlog. Deferred maintenance is another way we hear it in the public sector. And again, it comes back to just a good list of the work you might be able to achieve. If you have that opportunity, and if you have that time, and if you have that access, in many cases it's access you wouldn't normally be granted in your normal day-to-day operations. Students around, you're a manufacturing facility that you're running your normal production shifts. Your municipality that your buildings are filled with citizens and you just couldn't get to those parts of your buildings to perform these tasks. This is an excellent time to look at that work. And if you just take the time to look through however you're categorizing your deferred maintenance or your backlog, but have a good list of those tasks, make sure they're properly prioritized, make sure they're properly assigned to the appropriate crews, so that you can chip away. I mean, it's maybe a rare opportunity if you have the time and access to get that done. Again, suspending PMs. I'm always feeling a little funny when I say this because I talk about the importance of preventive maintenance so often when I'm lecturing. But this is a different situation. You don't want to be doing PMs. I'll use a manufacturing example now. If you've got a production line because you really have slowed down production, you can turn off those PMs. If you're a school district and you have a whole area of your campus that is shut off because it's not, let me say, producing food or anything else that's going on, you can do, we call it a site closure in this particular screen. There's ways, as I said before, to turn off those PMs. Again, you're already overwhelmed with the work orders you have to get done. Don't overwhelm yourself with preventive maintenance tasks you have no prayer to get to. Just make sure you turn that stuff back on. You may have time to really dig into some analytics, capital, and budget needs that you maybe in your normal day-to-day operations you wouldn't get to. If you have the time, there's all these great resources in our solutions to dive in and analyze the effectiveness of your staff, the effectiveness of your assets, looking at things like analyzing repair versus place. What is the relationship between what I'm spending maintaining an asset or maintaining a building versus what it would cost me to replace it? Here's a good example of one of our the analytics that we have in our solution called asset lifecycle analysis. And if we look at this, we've got two HVAC-related assets, and it could be anything. It could be a manufacturing asset. It could be any one of our different verticals. And every one of these assets gets a grade, A to F, like school. So this air handler unit's getting a B, this boiler unit's getting a D. And what's happening here is the air handler unit is actually an older asset. It was installed with a theoretically 10-year expected life. It's an older asset. It's actually outlived that 10 years, going on 5+ years now. However, despite its age, it's performing rather well from a frequency of failure and a cost trend. Conversely, the boiler unit got a grade of a D. It's a newer asset. It theoretically has expected life in it. However, it's not doing very well. How do we know this? Well, from all that work order history that you have around these assets, this air handler unit, over time, costs have been going down. That's a good sign. The frequency of failure, the number of days between events, has actually been rising. Another good sign. Conversely, the boiler unit, which was newer, its costs have been rising. Its frequency of failure has been getting worse. That's not a good sign. So you can kind of put all that into a blender and look at these assets with these grades. And you can pull up this report and look at all the assets you care to look at that time. Look at the grades of those assets and compare that with the work order history. It's an excellent opportunity to look at repair versus replace, identifying assets that maybe don't have very good preventive maintenance, or maybe it's a contractor issue, maybe it's a training issue, but whatever it is, analyze it. There's all kinds of tools and reports and analytics in our solution here. If you have the time, dive in. Look at where your work orders are coming from. Look at where your downtime is coming from. And start to think about, well, how could we possibly improve that? Again, as Josh and I have been saying, if you have the time, these reports are right there at your fingertips to analyze.